Welcome to Fitness and Consciousness. I'm your host, Ryan Hadley, and my guest today is Amos Rodriguez, and he's going to tell us about where he is from and his message. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Ryan. As he said, my name is Amos Rodriguez. I'm from El Salvador. It's a very small country in Central America, only 204,000 square kilometers, and it's all coastline in the Pacific. We're surrounded by Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. I got here to Indiana in the fall of 2000. I got a scholarship to Manchester College, now Manchester University. I went to study art. I did restoration and conservation of all paintings. We did restore murals and paintings. And it was an amazing experience. It really changed my life. I moved to Indy to help a friend that was sick, and I've been here ever since.
So what made you move? You said there was like civil war going on in El Salvador. I don't really know much about El Salvador. So what was it going on there, and why did you want to leave?
Well, it's not like I really wanted to leave El Salvador. It's just being a young guy and having the opportunity to study abroad during that time of social conflict, which was the Civil War was actually over by then. It was 1992 the Civil War ended in El Salvador. It was a peace accord signed in Mexico between the guerrillas and the government at the time, but I really didn't just wanted to leave El Salvador. I really like the country, To be sincere, it's a beautiful place. You can do excellent surfing, and you can go climb mountains, cloud forests. The people are amazing. It's being plagued by social conflict because of years and years that it has been on their to put in the socio-political context, it's like all Latin America has been going through similar changes until now. Back in the day, a bunch of countries in Latin America went through dictators. Augusto Pinochet was helped by the CIA to overthrow the elected president of Chile, Salvador Allende. They did a coup d'etat and they put him in power. He became a dictator in there. A bunch of dictators through all Latin America. The Somoza family in Nicaragua. All these military juntas, all these military guys being like puppets of the people that are providing the weapons. They got in power. When you have these people in power, then you can tell them how to do the economic or social structure of the country in order to benefit your pocket. Then you can put sweatshops in Latin America because you have the people that you are supporting with these weapons in power. El Salvador at one time it was receiving $1.5 million a day in military aid from the United States.
Who was it going to? Was it going to the good guys or the bad guys, or is that not that simple?
Well, yeah, it's not that simple, depending who you ask, But if you are a person with enough consciousness and you're aware of what's going on and you have done your homework and you have read about history and politics, and then you are fully aware that these military dictators were not doing a really good thing in Latin America. They were doing massacres of thousands of people. El Mozote massacre in El Salvador. We're still digging the bones out of these people, and to exhumate, to give these people a proper burial. They were massacred by soldiers trained in the United States in military insurgency techniques. Students, church leaders were targeted by these military people trained in the United States because people were working with poor communities. I'm not just talking this and saying it. I have lived these things. My uncles, student leader union from the National University of El Salvador, they took him with my other uncle. The police came to the house, they took him. Mom and uncles looking for him for 3 days. They finally found him in the city dump.
Oh, man.
With signs of torture in his legs, testicles electrocuted, and it's like counterinsurgency techniques on young boys. My mother was arrested by...
sorry to interrupt you. How old was he at the time?
My uncle, probably in his 20s. I'm not quite sure, actually, to be sincere. It's like because of the stress at the moment. All of these accounts sometimes are difficult to put in dates. That's what I'm trying to put all of this in writing right now in order to have a clear timeline in the white man sense of a timeline, a linear timeline. Because for me, these are remember during this time it's like heavy social conflict. People don't even realize what that is like, because the United States is always a war, but it's always a war outside the United States. It's never a war inside the United States, so it's hard to think about these things, but yeah, my parents were targeted by the church. When my parents were targeted, it was 1989. We had a Emmanuel Baptist Church in El Salvador. We were doing a lot of work with poor communities, teaching them social programs like agriculture, water, clean water supplies, schools. Our church had the belief that you cannot just go teach about Christ if the people are really hungry and are suffering. There was a lot of suffering at the time because of the repression of these military people. I mean, this is a real situation where massacres are happening in El Salvador, and anybody that is helping these poor communities is being labeled as subversive or terrorist, and then
the crime is helping people.
Helping the poor communities.
And that's what made them a target, because they're doing good. And so that was a crime. Is that what you're saying? That was why they became a target, is because they are doing this church work?
In my own views, and remember, I'm just speaking here on my own experience, yes. But I believe people that really will look into an example like mine, if they really look at all of the points, all of the information that we can provide, then I think most people that have a common sense will realize that, yeah, we're just trying to do good to the community. We're trying to create community. We're trying to do be a service to the lesser of us, to the people that don't have, if they don't have any hope, if they don't even have eaten that day, how can they be in a good position? We all need some basic human needs, the needs of clean water and food and survival. And we don't have to be like happy all the time, but we like try to strive to, to be in a good way, in a good balance relationship with our environment. So yeah, I don't know. It's the Civil War was a big cause. Was a big reason why I wanted to see a different culture, a different environment, a different setting. And having the opportunity to have a scholarship to Manchester College, I wrote a bunch of letters to a bunch of churches in Indiana, and they gave me the rest of the money I needed for room and board for the first couple of years. It's kind of like that youth thing. I wanted to go see what was there. I was really angry at this society when I was coming here because I didn't want to come. I wanted the opportunity to study, but I'm like, man, this society has done so much harm to my family. The United States providing so many weapons to El Salvador, to the military juntas that are doing all this carnage in the people of El Salvador just in order to be in control of the economic system that is just benefiting the rich. El Salvador now has dollarization. They impose their dollars. You don't have to change your money when you go to El Salvador. You can use your own dollars from here. We have this thing called dollarization. It's colonization in a modern way, economic colonization and military colonization, and the same old story that we've been living. Still happening in so many different places. El Salvador is just one example. Everybody is up in arms because the interfering of the elections in the United States. Yeah, I'm mad about that too, but guess what? The United States been interfering in crazy elections all over the world, killing people. It's a game these clowns are playing on people, and people don't realize they're being played. They're, I'm the left, I'm the right, and it's all the same. Same crap, different smell.
That's how I see it too. That like if almost like if somebody identifies as a Democrat or a Republican, then like from my perspective, it's like, well, then if you want to know what I'm talking about, you can't get here from there. If you're identifying as this, or you're identifying at, or like if you're on like the far left and you think that Republicans are the ones that are messing everything up, you're not going to understand what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
And if you're a Republican thinking that it's the left, you're not going to understand what I'm talking about either. And it took me a while to get there, because there's like a lot of the left I think has, like treat people fairly. If gay people want to get married, what's the big deal?
And the crazy thing is, these issues have been changing forever. If you look at political science and you start looking at charts on these issues like gay marriage and the gun control and all these issues have been changing forever. First it was the Republicans, then the Democrats, and it's just depending on who. I'm telling you, they're playing a game on people, and people don't realize that they have the power to change these things. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like people are too into their TV and listening to what their talking heads are saying to them, and not really paying attention to the big picture. That's one of the good things that Manchester College did for me. That was a liberal arts education. We were able to do different subjects in order to graduate. And I enjoyed that part. I was having to use my brain for different things, and we're losing those things, we're no longer doing supporting the arts and the schools in lowering the budgets for this type of. Not all kids learn the same way, you know. Yeah. So I feel like these issues have been changing, and it's just they're manipulating the issues in order to manipulate the people. Gay marriage, and it's like, listen, we all have a decency. We're all decent humans. There is a basic respect. If we all could have empathy for each other, then we could understand each other. But this, like, the people in power, they just want you to lose empathy. They don't want you to feel for your brother. Then you feel bad about bombing kids in Syria. Thousands of children die, and then you'll feel bad for the youth in Palestine. It's like a concentration camp you got going on there. Then you'll feel bad about what's going on with the all the money you're funneling for the war on drugs and killing people in Mexico. You know, it's like you gotta have a different level of consciousness in order to understand these things. You gotta look at a bigger picture. But a lot of people are so close-minded, and it's really difficult for them to see these things because their lack of experience. They haven't been able to like have one of these Saulonic conversions where they change because they met somebody that made them change their mind. They haven't been able to like travel to a developing country. I don't know.
Developing in quotation
marks. In quotation marks,
yeah.
Exactly. It's like a third world in quotation mark country because they haven't had the opportunity. They're like, why would I go out there if I haven't visited all of Indiana? Like, no, listen, there is a different level of understanding when you travel and you put your mind in a different context like that. So it's hard for a lot of people to see this, and for the people that are awakened, the people that have been able to see the difference, it's really important for the people to wake up right now and to do our part and to start understanding first our inner self. Who are we? You know, are we understanding what's going on? If we understand what's going on, we understand that the society we're building is not being balanced. That the rich people are just accumulating all the money, all the power. This is ridiculous. What they're doing is insanity. It's hoarding money. If you try to stack the money in $100 bills, what they're making, what they're supposedly have in the bank, you will go from here to the moon and back in such amounts that we can put it in a park, you know? So it's like a sickness. You shouldn't be a hoarder like that. And just, I feel like a lot of these damages to our environment and to what's going on is because of the economic system that we got going on. We have a capitalist, corporate capitalist economic system. You know, economic system that is just looking for, by definition, capitalism is damaging us because it's capitalism as an economic system looks at private ownership of property, which is a good thing, I think. And the second thing is the pursuit of maximum profit. That's where it goes bad. Because if you're trying to make as much money as you can make, you're not gonna care about your brother. That's why some companies, they are okay with damaging the environment. Monsanto is making poison to kill the good bacteria of the earth. In order to sell you weed killer, people think that it's okay to grow lawns and kill the dandelions. It's the stupidest thing. It's like people don't realize the situation we're in. Sorry to say stupid. It's just
No, that's okay. I definitely understand. I won't say that I know a lot about economics, but to me, like, capitalism doesn't have to be bad. It gives somebody a chance, so they can come here from anywhere with nothing. If you could, and people have done that, and I think it's almost like that the immigrants that come here with nothing can appreciate what we have more than people that are like born here who don't appreciate it. Like, oh, their parents were rich, that they never went hungry, or they'll say they're hungry when they just haven't eaten in a few hours. Like, that's not hungry. That's, you just would like to have something to eat again. So if people that have come here and they want this better life, and so maybe somebody comes here from some third world country, is probably not really a very nice way to put it, but you get the idea. So they come here from like Mexico, or Cuba is like a big one too, where they come here and they've been hungry, and they can come here and they can get a job, even if it's at McDonald's or something. Then they can work their way up to manager, and there's programs they can even become an owner. And then, or you can like go around to, like, if you don't have any money, you can go around and offer to mow people's lawns. Maybe you have to borrow their lawnmower, then you get $50, then you go buy a cheap lawnmower, and then you have a lawn mowing business. And so to me, that seems like capitalism. But then when you're getting into like, yeah, I have all this money, and that means I can control you. I can give you $7 an hour, and you're working just because of your situation. You're working these jobs that are maybe you're like cleaning toilets at McDonald's or something because you just got here, and I'm the rich guy that has the money and the power, and so you're like put in this position. But you'll do it anyway, because you want your kids to have something better. Because you're saving money, you'll eat rice and beans, but your kid's going to go to college, and then he can make enough money to do whatever he wants. He can be a doctor or a lawyer. So I think a lot of the times when people hear, of course I respect your point of view. You come from a completely different world than I do. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just giving you like my way of thinking. So and I think that is a big story with the immigrants is, yeah, maybe they had a degree in whatever country they're from even, or they went through high school, or maybe they had nothing, but they come here and they'll work some job they don't want to be at, so their kids can have the opportunity to be an artist. Because there's no money in making an artist if you don't have somebody at least like helping you out along the way. I mean, that's not like a 100% true,
I completely understand what you're saying. Well, a couple points. Just the first is you gotta look at the different contexts of where, like, immigration. Remember, immigration is a huge issue. There are so many more immigrants than people realize, because there is all the illegal immigration, you know. In the two examples you gave, like the Mexico and Cuba, two different, like, people that came from, there are different types of relationship with Mexico and Cuba. Remember, Cubans were giving a free pass if they were able to put one foot in the beach. Yeah. They were giving nationality where other people were not giving that right, in order for them to have people from Cuba try to come try to destabilize. It's everything. I think it has so much more for us to look into, and like the immigration issue is so complex that, yeah, I mean, people like me, you know, yeah, I know what being hungry means, because I have spent a couple of days being hungry, you know, a few days that you haven't had no food. I understand what hunger is. It's I have an appreciation. I want to work really hard. In just having an accent, having a brown skin, I feel like I have to work sometimes extra hard to show people that I really mean business, that I really want to work this, that I'm really trying to do my best in my job. And that's what I think that we're lacking. A lot of people don't have that level of consciousness that even if it's doing anything, if you're like cleaning a toilet, if you're like, yeah, just clean this toilet, it's just the easiest thing to do, and you're not gonna do a good job if you're not completely doing it with a complete consciousness that you're like, no, this is my job right now. I have to do a really good job, check the knobs underneath on the underside, and nobody checks these toilets. We gotta do a really good job with this. I don't know, it's with immigrants, it's like we have a lot of people fled. El Salvador, for example, a couple million people leave at once, but we gotta look at the reason why people leave. Why did 2 million people leave? Because they were being bombed. 5,000-pound bombs falling in the country, all these people being massacred. Your complete village have been burned to the ground, massacred by military people. And people are looking for opportunities. I was saying earlier, that's not the reason. Yeah, I came here looking for opportunities because that's always our mentality as humans, but it wasn't like I wasn't here with the same mentality when the people were fleeing, like my aunt when she fled, fleeing the war. My uncles went to Sweden, so many people left to Canada. People left all over the place, Immigration it's been like that ever since in the time of the Maya, when immigrants from Mexico went to south to El Salvador, and they became the Pipils, the original Indians of El Salvador. And then colonization started happening. Like, remember that these things are like just a few generations ago. These are fresh things that have happened. These wars, this colonization, these things are still happening to people. So immigration is such a complex issue. We have to sit down, I feel like, and talk. A lot of people talk about it, but we have to be inclusive, because the reason why a lot of immigration is happening is because of the economic policies. Now brings me to the second point of capitalism. Well, yeah, capitalism doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but I think just because by nature, by definition, it ends up being a bad thing. And that's just maybe a different opinion, but let's look at it. Capitalism as an economic system is economic system that relies on private ownership of property and the pursuit of maximum profit. The profit right now that they are setting is the US dollar. It's a fiat currency, The pursuit of maximum profit, the second half of the definition of capitalism, is what I think is making a bad thing. Now let's add another bad thing to that. Corporate capitalism. Private corporations are now adding to this equation. Now we have CEOs banking millions and billions, and the people that used to be middle class are now just a bunch of poor people, and they're not making a lot of money because the corporation is treated as a person. Remember, this happened by the Supreme Court. Corporations are people, said the Supreme Court. And by that, they created a number of issues that we can talk about. But they're treating this. I think corporate capitalism is what ended up destroying this society. And why is it like a lot of people feel like the society is in its collapse because of the way these corporations are treating it. They just like not paying taxes. They're not paying their dues. The bridges are collapsing. There is no clean water in Flint, Michigan still after years of the children not having clean water. There's still no electricity in Puerto Rico. After you've been colonizing the island forever, you put bombs in Vieques, or dropping bombs in Vieques to use it as a training ground to test all your bombs, so you destroy the island.
In Puerto Rico?
That's in Puerto Vieques, Rico? Yeah.
That's happening now, you're saying?
They used it, no longer. They don't, because there was so much outrage about them bombing Vieques.
This is in the past. I remember it was an earthquake, right, that made the all electricity go out, and then, but after that, they were dropping.
No. This is an ongoing problem. This is the Vieques Island. You see, Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States. They haven't been able to. They are no. It's a huge issue, but the Vieques is an old issue. It was a training ground for dropping bombs back in the day. So a lot of my classmates from college went to protest Vieques when they were bombing the island. And right now, imagine after dropping so much uranium on an island, after dropping so many bombs, it will take years and years and years for this place to recuperate. So that's why there is a big problem with bombing. The bombing in Syria, because a lot of the weapons they're using right now has so many toxins on it, so it takes so many years just to clean up the environment.
Yeah. Do you have? Is there an economic system that has been proven that you think should replace the capitalism we have, or is there like tweaks to the system that you think would make it better? And
no, I think it's a matter of everybody doing small gardens, everybody like providing food for themselves and for their neighbors, and everybody can specialize in different things, and we don't have to have stuff they're processing our chicken in China now, the beef. Like, how can that make any sense? It's economic sense for them, where they're shipping our meat out there. They are processing it, packing it, then sending it back in a shipping here and selling it to us. How can that make any health sense, And it's like, the way the farming, the monoculture, the way the nutrition it is, the fast food culture, all of these things that are wreaking havoc on our health and our society, and they are completely just benefiting the people who are making money doing this. That only makes sense to them because they are doing exactly what capitalism says, the pursuit of maximum profit. I mean, we are in a different context, different times. We're creating our future. We're creating our present. We gotta create our own systems. We gotta create our own communities, but we cannot let these clowns create it for us anymore. They're destroying the oceans. They're killing people. They're giving cancer to people. And they're not letting us use medicines that we need to use to cure the cancer that they're giving people. So it's time to do it, to people to start getting their information, and time to start sharing. People who don't want to listen, when we cannot do much for them anymore. But I feel like this time for Trumpism. It's a good time for the good people of this earth to rise up and do what needs to be done, what's right, do the right thing. We need to walk in truth. No more lies of these people.
So it seems like, if I'm hearing you right, that it's not like people are like the best thing that we can do is, okay, so instead of like buying their food, like the corporate food, you like trade with your neighbor. You're growing beans, he's growing corn, you trade, and somebody else might have,
I think that's a good
else,
system.
and then so they can almost be like the corporate I think some corporations are good, but I get what you're saying, and I think that's so you can almost make them obsolete without having any kind of like revolution in the streets of like violence, because that violence won't work against the government. They're too good at that. But if you just like kind of ignore them and like let them play over there, and we're gonna do this over here, and so is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, no,
saying?
I do think so, some corporations are good. I have been being owner and working in Manchester for a Conscious Marketing Incorporated. It's a corporation, I'm just using it.
That's your own business.
Yeah, we have we gotta play the game, We're here. I'm not here. I always try to follow the rules of the game. That's why we're trying to change the system, trying to play the same game. The system that means it's a difficult game to play, but we're trying to help a lot of people. We're trying to teach people that there's an alternate way to do this. It's still okay to make a little money. We all have to survive. It's no, we don't want like the horrors of communism back where it's like nobody has nothing to eat. I mean, this is a different time. We're building our future now. We're completely different. The socio-political, economic context that we're playing right now is unseen it's just insanity. I mean, we have to think about solutions. Real, concrete solutions. We have to sit at the table to think about this thing. But right now, the polarization is so much that people are not allowed to get close to talk to each other. That's why we are trying to break through that, in trying to make the first step, which is to have a create community, to break through the barriers of polarization. So we do things like work here at the school at White Pine. We do sweat lodges when the community wants them. We give support to any organization that wants to help in the environment. We're trying with a lot of people. There is a lot of awoken people. There is a huge community that is working, but we need more and more people, obviously, because right now the situation there, we're reversing some policies that have been in place for many years. Now they're being reversed, and we're I don't know, seems sometimes for some people like we're going back to the Stone Age, but it just means that we have a lot more work to do.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up like the communism thing, because there does seem to be this, and people can even like debate what socialism even means, or like Marxism. You hear like some people like Russell Brand, who's I don't know if you know who he is, but he's really a brilliant guy. I like listening to him. He speaks really well, and but he seems to think Marxism is like a pretty good idea, and it's like, what? Like, as brilliant as you are, how can you, like, where has that worked before? So maybe there's like some ideas of it that are good, or like they'll think like, oh, well, here you are talking about capitalism. Somebody might hear it like that. Well, he must be a communist or something like that, but you're not that either. So there's like, now we're in 2018. Yeah, Marxism doesn't really work out very well. Like the ideas of it are flawed. Maybe some people like some of it. And this capitalism, we can see where that goes wrong too. But now we're like in this other thing where we have these other options available, and we're figuring it out. And it seems like people are becoming more conscious. That's one of the reasons I have this show. And then I didn't know that your business until just a little bit ago was named Conscious Marketing, and then your other business, Conscious Cleaning. So it's kind of funny how like more people are becoming aware in these different ways. It's not like you have to think just like me or anything like that. That would be weird. We don't need to be in agreement on about 100 on every single thing. That would be strange. But there's this new era, and maybe we don't have all the answers yet, but we have like some of them, like grow our own food, get to know your neighbors in the community, and like help each other out. This guy grows this, that guy grows that, this guy has
yeah, no, I feel some of those labels, they have sometimes a bad connotation, communist or socialist, and like. But if we look at the definition of this terminology, that's, I think, where we're lacking as society. We're no longer looking at the definition of these terms. We gotta set the parameters. When we're having conversations, I feel like we need to set the parameters. What are we really talking about? Are we really talking about the same thing? What is in your head? The idea of socialism. Are we talking about socialism as an economic system? Because if we look at the definition of socialism as an economic system, we might end up liking it. But are you ready to accept the ideas? Are we ready to think about those ideas? Where we own the equipment, we own the goods. Like, I kind of like that instead of these guys owning all the equipment and all the goods and me doing all the work. It's like it needs to be a little more fair. But what I was saying earlier is that we're in such a different context. They're using this terminology. I mean, you can apply that terminology. I take it with pride. You can call me a socialist and I will accept it and I take it. And you can call me a communist, and I will accept it and take it. And it's just all these labels that if we really start reading about Karl Marx and his theory, we're not just picking the bad stuff that has been played for it. Like, his books are by the thousands of pages. There are so many ideas. One of the great thinkers of our time that we have barely started exploding just because 100 years ago, but some of these ideas could be good for our modern society. I'm not saying we need to implement the communist theories of back in the day. I'm not saying that this is just we're all in. What I'm saying is that we need to take a step back and look at our smaller society, our neighbor. We gotta stop looking at our screens. We gotta look more at our neighbors, our community, where we at. Are we really helping our community or hurting our community? And I think for these labels, yeah, they get played sometime like that. But if we really start studying, start looking, not studying, but start just like trying to get in the same page of what do we mean by being like a communist. Is it the same idea that was 50 years ago? The communists are coming, let's build a bomb shelter? Maybe, because they're talking about playing war with nuclear warheads again. So maybe we're in this vicious cycle as humanity that we need to break. But I really think that we need to define our terms when we start having conversations. Like, okay, let's talk. If we can talk about all of this, but let's talk about the same thing first.
Yeah, that is a good point because it's like the Democrat and Republican. It's like, okay, you choose one, I'll choose the other, and then we'll argue about stuff forever. And then the people that came up with those groups are the ones they're winning. They're like, okay, now they're safe now because we're just going to argue forever. And like, your guy's worse. No, your guy is, and that it never ends. But if you can like you were saying, like kind of like step back and take a look, it's like they like there's a term opposames. Yeah, they might be a little bit different on this or that, but once they get in office, it seems like that same plan that's been going on for 100 years or more, regardless of whether somebody is a Democrat or Republican in office, it seems like the same general plan keeps moving along. But it's like also beside that, like people are becoming like more aware of this, and it's like I think like maybe like a tribal thing or something like that. So if I pick a Republican, if I call myself a Republican, then I don't want to start talking bad about my tribe. Mm-hmm. It's like, right or wrong, that's me. And if you're against them, then you're against me. That means I'm against you. And really, it's like we probably want really the same thing. We want our like family to have a safe place to grow up and be able to have our businesses how we want and to not be controlled and to not like finance wars we don't agree with, and like the El Salvador stuff. I didn't really know very much about that, but
no,
like,
most people don't know about that stuff. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I came to college, that's what I was saying. When I came here, I was like really angry. Because I'm like, man, this society has dropped bombs. They rape my mom. They torture my family because of what, And then I came here and I talked to my classmates and students. They don't know anything about El Salvador. So I couldn't be mad at them. They were really nice people. Then I started getting an understanding that society is not actually the one doing this. They don't want my family to be tortured, But the ignorance of society, not knowing what the government is really doing, is the problem. So then my rage transform into I need to inform. I need to try to educate, to tell people what's going on about El Salvador. So in college that's where I started my own healing process. My family, we don't talk about these things, all the problems, the crap that happened to us. In college, I started talking to professors that helped me go through writing processes and through art therapy, and there are different ways to get through trauma like that. And I was able to write and start talking about these things. So now I'm ready to talk to anybody that has an interest on knowing what's going on, about El Salvador is just one example. There are millions of us, Colonization is a real issue. It's happening right now in so many places. And in order to impose the economic system of this country, El Salvador is just one example of that.
Did most of the people that you talked with about it in college or even afterwards, were they receptive to the information, or were they like, oh, you must be wrong, you must be...
No, this college was kind of cool. It was like a brethren college. It was like one of the first, if not the first, peace studies program in the nation. Martin Luther King's last speech, formal speech, before in a college. It was a Manchester College at the gymnasium. It's a very forward-thinking college, and so we did symposiums there. So it was through a symposium that I did my first talk. But later, to the college, one of the only survivors of El Mozote massacre, Rufina Maya, came to speak at Manchester College three months before her death. You know, she was she was like a survivor of El Mozote massacre. She hid in a bush, you know, when they were massacring her kids, her family. But through this, by being able to write it and to speak about these things to Manchester College, we were able to do it. And yeah, people were really receptive. They were able to see a lot of the audience was from other students, like Palestine, and so they have a similar history. A lot of professors have seen or read or they have some sort of experience with social issues, social conflicts like that. So only the people that wanted to come and listen to these talks, they were the ones that came. So it was a pretty receptive audience.
Yeah, I would think a lot of people would be pretty surprised about it. I think generally people will know that our government takes our money and funds stuff that almost no one agrees with. And most people, if you would ask them, you know, if they want to bomb Iraq and Syria and, you know, the list goes on, El Salvador, or do these testings, like,
well, they get people to approve these things. They trick people into thinking that it's okay to do these things because we're putting these labels on the other people. Like, what's the reason they gave to attack Iraq? They gave the reason that they were after the weapons of mass destruction that end up being weapons of mass deception. They didn't find any weapons of mass destruction in there. They were also say that Iraq was linked to the terrorist attack. It's just like the lies they use in order to, they're criminal acts. They shouldn't be able to lie to people like that. And people just sometimes don't follow through with their thinking. They just get the snapshots of the TV, of the news, and they don't follow through. It's like, well, they never found weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. I mean, yeah, he was a bad guy, but to me, Donald Trump is a bad guy, and I'm not gonna wanna go bomb him out of the White House, you know? That's just criminal thinking, you know? There is a reason why they're doing this thing, and it's being a systematic way of, I believe it's just the same colonization.
Yeah, I think most people, a lot of us, we don't have time to pay that much attention, or we're paying attention to other things. People will know a lot about sports, or they'll know a lot of, and I almost in a way can't really blame people for not wanting to pay attention to politics. I used to listen to talk radio almost all day, every day. I would listen to it from the morning when I got up, or I'd listen to like the comedy radio show in the morning, and then like by about 10 o'clock I'd be listening to political stuff until like 10 o'clock at night, because I had a job where I was listening to the radio. I'd get home, so I knew about all this different political stuff. Some of it I was listening to from like right wing, but I knew that. Left wing, and then like more like libertarian kinds of things, which made the most sense to me. Their perspective made the most, but you can get information from these other shows, whether you agree with them or not, and then you can Google and figure stuff out. So, but then I just quit, because like every day I could name like 50 things that you should be mad about. And then it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? And like, well, for me, one of the things I wanted to do about it was quit listening to it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm just going to pay attention to like stuff that doesn't make me mad. So it's this balance of like, do you want to just be mad? Because there's plenty to be mad about.
Yeah.
And so it's like this weird,
absolutely.
weird thing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Why, it's weird. There's 1,000 reasons to get angry at the news. That's why most people, after taking a good dosage of that, they have had plenty of it. They just shut it off because they're making news are making money into giving you bad news. It's terrible. And put aside we're destroying the planet, and that's kind of bad news. Putting a damper on things. But the idea is, I think, is to completely shut it all off and rebuild our society. To don't let the people who are doing this continue. Let's look at our own community and start our own gardens. And if, of course, it's a utopian idea. It's like it's a dream. It's like, well, what if everybody were world peace right now? Pow! Everybody planting gardens. Oh, it's so nice. It's just it doesn't work that way. It's just it takes a lot of work. We gotta transform like that anger or we cannot just get mad that things are wrong. We actually have to do something. We have to at least plant a garden, stop buying at the grocery, get no plastic. Be nice to your neighbor. I don't know, small acts of kindness. Anything small that you can do to change the whole dynamic. I just feel like we're doing it the wrong way, in terms of a general society as a whole. It's just the mentality, the culture of violence. Kids are getting shot in schools, like in no other place. The rich are taking all the money. The environment is getting destroyed. I just think that we need to stop and rethink. And it doesn't have to be a specific way, another way. We can think our own way of rescuing our society. We can use a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and create our own future. But it needs to be in a balanced way. So right now it's too imbalanced.
Yeah, I thought before that, what if instead of, because a lot of people, we were just talking about, they don't have time to pay attention, or they don't want to pay attention to politics, but they'll go vote, and they're like, oh, I'm just going to vote for the Republicans. I'm just going to vote for Democrats. That makes it so much easier than figuring out what everybody says. So I thought, well, what if we no longer have the Democrat and Republicans to vote for? People can think of themselves however they want, but when someone gets up there and they're running for president, it's, I'm Ryan Hadley, I'm running for president. This is what I think. This is what I want to do. And I'm not saying I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. This is me, and this is what I think we should do. And this is how I'll lead. This is how I'll take in information to process. These are the people who I will hire to advise me. And that way, if you're going to vote for somebody, you kind of can't help but pay attention to what they're actually talking about. Because I think a lot of people, whether, I think it happens every election, people will vote for somebody, and then he didn't do what he said. And then they have some buyer's remorse, and then there's other people that just stick with it and well, it's still better than the other team. But I had thought that might be, and then they have so long to do, all right, we'll give him a year and a half to do these 4 things he promised, and then if not, back to the voting booth.
Yeah, no, it's the only problem is that, remember, this system that these clowns are doing is being set in a way that only benefit them. They are rigging the way the map is structured every year according to their benefits. They are doing everything they can in order for them to be winning and still in power. They're doing the technique of divide and conquer. So look at somebody that wants to do something different, like Bernie Sanders, for example. A lot of people like Bernie Sanders, but A lot of people feel like he's got cheated, by the Democratic Party for the nomination because Hillary wanted the nomination. What if a bunch of these Trump supporters will have voted for Bernie Sanders and he will be the president now? What was his label? His label was Democratic Socialist. He was introducing the word socialist by this old guy has been trying to play this game for the last 30 years in there the right way. He's been sitting there doing it with the votes of the people going out. He's been doing the political game, He's for other people to come just out of the blue and to be an independent candidate for president, the way the system is set up right now, it will be almost impossible. It will be really hard to do. It will be a hard thing to do, really difficult thing to do. So that's why I think that the whole system needs to be changed. Because if it's even hard for somebody like Bernie Sanders that's been playing the system and he's got the support for so many people that completely changed the whole equation here, then it'll be even harder for somebody who's trying to be independent. That it's just they're controlling the rules of the game and the game itself, and so it's really hard to do it. So I think a lot of the changes need to happen in a very systematic way from the inside out. A lot of the rules needs to be changed.
Yeah, I think you were talking about like growing your own food and that kind of thing can go a long way. And it's like maybe if we can ignore them and make them obsolete in a way. Like what if they had an election and nobody showed up? Like it's already like half the people that can vote show up. And I haven't voted for a while because I didn't want to vote for anybody. I didn't want to vote for Hillary. There's way too many problems with her. I didn't want to vote for Trump. There's way too many problems with him. So I just voted for no one, and I was...
Yeah,
it's like...
The same with a lot of people. A lot of people don't want the same thing. I mean, this lady's a criminal, It's true, man. There's too many problems with it. And then it's like, Trump, don't even get me started, man. This guy is a complete joker, man, So it's like, yeah, you don't have an... Then they don't let you vote for somebody that has some common sense, like Bernie Sanders. Then it's like, screw it, I don't want to vote then, I'll stay home and watch, I don't know, whatever you're watching. It's an easy thing to do. And I think they're doing a good job in keeping the polarization, the two-party system going, and just maintaining the same. It's like Groundhog Day here, it's every day. We're just like, our problems keep getting bigger though, we won't be able to reverse the environmental problems. We won't be able to cure our children from all the sicknesses that the pesticides are giving them. It will take a long time for recuperating. People are not thinking about the future generations. Water, clean water, trees, clean land. Just thinking about profits and I don't know, their happiness, I guess.
Yeah, when I was like watching the debates for the last election, I thought that one guy, Rand Paul, and I was only I was paying attention, but not as much as I could have. But when they were talking about fighting, defeating Al Qaeda, and he was saying, well, how about we stop funding them? How about we stop arming them? And then it was like, geez, I guess we're going to have to ask the next guy because that's not the answer. We need somebody that's gonna talk about war and somebody that's we can't. And he's like, yeah, but if we just quit giving them weapons and stuff, that would help. Mm-hmm. Like, no, we don't want to talk to this guy anymore. That's and then he just gets kind of like ignored and then
exactly.
He goes away and then you start talking to the people that will defeat them, like fight them.
No, he's got some great ideas. I like that guy sometimes. And that's the truth. Like, if you look at the actual where the money is going, where are these weapons coming from? You know, who's arming the whole Israeli army? The United States. Who's arming? Where are the bullets, the bombs? We just gotta look at it. There is, we were advised here by your president. It's called the military-industrial complex. It's like somebody's making money in all these bombs, $1 million planes. Like, who country the budget for the military is just outrageous. We cannot continue doing this colonization by force because we have clear examples in history of what happened to empires like that. So I don't know. It's. And again, I only been experiencing that from that part of El Salvador. A few places I have visited, and my time in here is my experience is minimal compared to the tentacles of the United States. It's everywhere. There are military bases in so many countries. Who wants to start counting them? There's people that count them. There are books written about it. It's just like so many. I just think that it's the way the society is doing it. I just don't feel that it's the right way. A lot of people are waking up. There's a huge protest at the pipeline last year at a Standing Rock. Was a huge factor. It was amazing.
Is that still going on?
Yeah, there is a bunch of protests, but for different pipelines. Some for gas, some for oil. A lot of people got woken up. A lot of indigenous people have also set up their own lines of defense, and there's line 3 people are protesting right now. There's some from Canada. There's some from it's a constant fight. A lot of people have woken up. A lot of people are doing this fight now. So I feel like I don't want to just play like a gray picture, that everything is so terrible. It's not. No, things are improving in terms of the basic connections that we're trying to build underground.
Yeah. So we know each other from White Pine Wilderness Academy, which is where we are recording now. And I went to, there was this prayers ceremony that was held, and I forget the guy's name, but he was an elder from somewhere that out west, and he came here to White Pine, and he was like praying and singing, and that's where I met Josiah, and he was playing the flute, and it was this really powerful experience. And we were out in the yurt, and then at the they're talking about what's going on out there because they've been out there, and then at the end of it, Josh comes in and he's holding his phone, and he was like, I've confirmed this, I'm still trying to confirm it, but I've looked at it from several sources, and the pipeline was stopped. Like, he's like, this temporarily, and everybody was like, "Wow, that was pretty wild." That we're at this prayer to like stop this from happening, and then Josh comes in at the end holding his phone like, I think it worked.
Yeah, no. But remember now, then after Trump came in power, then he put fast track for them to get it started again. So it's a constant battle. That's what I'm saying. Like all these pipelines, all the mining of uranium that are poisoning the Oglala aquifer, all this natural gas pipeline, all these old technologies that are ruining our environment, that we need to change them. Mm-hmm. We are in a constant fight against these things.
Do you think we have to be? Now, there's some people that maybe think, because like when Obama might have put the temporary stop on the one going through Standing Rock, but he also approved 4 more at the same time. There's a lot going on. There's so many of them going on. It wasn't just through Standing Rock. So it might have looked like, okay, this one's getting some political... this one's getting too much
let's pass this other 3 on the...
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop this, but I'm going to let those other 12 go on by. Keep on, guys, and then the coincidence.
Yeah, exactly.
But do you think that we have to have that kind of a fight? We can't just have... Do you think there... I mean, not necessarily with like oil or something like that, but do you think like just as like a spiritual people, there has to be some kind of... fight. There has to be some kind of battle. Otherwise,
there is.
What are we doing?
Yeah, there is. Like right now, like, so the way I feel like is your context determines the fight. When I was in El Salvador, the people are getting massacred. Complete towns are getting killed. Your family is getting killed. I mean, you have to fight. You gotta get some type of weapons and fight it. And that's how they were able to force the government to talk about peace. But right now that's not the moment here. Right now it's the fight it's with prayers. That's what basically Standing Rock was. It was a prayer camp. There were supposed to be there were no weapons, no drugs, no alcohol at the place, and they were met on the other side with violence. They took rocket launchers, they took dogs to people, they took mercenaries they took the military, they were met with violence from the other side, but Standing Rock was a prayer camp. And
when I'm getting maced.
Yeah, and water hose and
freezing cold. And
so when I'm talking about fight, when I'm saying right now, it's like, because a warrior doesn't have to be in battle all the time as with the gun or the sword or the knife. We have to maintain the knife sharp, but we cannot be in a constant battle cry. We have to do our different battles. The warrior is first supporting its community, making sure the woman, the children are being fed and they're okay and they're safe. The battle is sometimes with prayers like a Standing Rock. But we have to stop with prayers, with non-violent action right now, these pipelines, because it's the only way right now, because they're not listening to us. They're not hearing the cry of the natives, of the environmentalists, of the landowners. They're not listening. They just want maximum profit, so they want to run this pipeline through there. So the battle, this fight right now, in the context that we are, is we're creating community and we're creating prayer, and it's like right now that's the way I think it is to be done.
Yeah. So you also lead the sweat lodges. You call them Anipi, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been to 3 of them at your place. And can you explain how did you get into that? Because that's a prayer too, right? Mm-hmm. And so can you explain what is the sweat lodge
Yeah.
Yeah, just what is it? I guess is a good place. How did you get into it, and what is it all about?
Yeah, as I say earlier, I came here in the fall of 2000. I went to Manchester College. There was a professor from Manchester College before I went there. Vic Glover, English professor. I believe he's a Blackfoot Lakota. He was one of the Sundancer at Fredo Bear, American Horse, Tioch Payes, up there in the southwest corner of Pine Ridge Reservation, Slim Buttes. He was our connection for me to get started. I met this artist, Larry Houchin, one of his friends, and Rochelle Houchin. These two artists, they were friends with Big Glover, and they invited me to go to South Dakota to Pine Ridge to a ceremony, and we went to a Sundance ceremony. Previous to that, a bunch of them guys have come through Indiana. They were on their way to Washington for some meetings they had. Uncle Tom Cook, his brother, rest in peace, and Milo, yellow hair. They came to Indianapolis. They set up in Ipi, a sweat lodge with willows at Lucan's Lake in Larry and Rochelle's house, and they did a ceremony for us. They did a sweat lodge. And for the first time I did this sweat lodge, I felt an urgent call to experience more of this, to do this in some way. And they invited me to this Sundance out there in the Black Hills. And that was like 12 years ago or so. I've been going every year ever since, and I have done the Sundance last 7 years. It's a prayer ritual of the Lakota people. I am not Lakota, but I am a native of this land, of Central America, of El Salvador. Maya people. I am. My people back in the day did similar ceremonies. There are sweat lodges that have been discovered in the by anthropologists in El Salvador from back in the day. All the similar rituals that we practice with the Lakota people are the rituals from antiquity that many cultures have practiced. The sweat bath or sweat ritual. It's a form of cleansing that's been used by so many people for so many generations, in so many places. And these people out there, they accepted me as one of them, so I've been going out there and learning from them. So I do a Lakota sweat lodge instead of a Temazcal style, just because that's the way I learn it. Remember that when I was in El Salvador, it was a time of social conflict, so there was not a lot of time to look at your internal spirituality and the way you do things. It was more like, well, I grew up in a Catholic society, so I'm Catholic, or I grew up in a Protestant church, so I'm Protestant, and that was about it. But there was not a lot of investigation of proper channels to understand of your own culture from your own people. But when I came here, I had a little more time to investigate that. So I discovered that, the people from El Salvador are some Maya, Lenca, and Pipil, different cultures, a bunch of different cultures from El Salvador, natives, They were colonized by the Spaniards. So now we have a mixed culture of mestizo is a word they use sometimes. But it's basically, yeah, a bunch of mixed Indian, Spanish blood people. But this happened just 500 years ago, 600. It's not that much, not that long ago that people were having great societies here in the Americas while Europe was going through really hardship times, and then they came to colonize to look for riches in here, So I felt very identified with the communities of the Lakota people because their suffering was similar to the suffering of my people. Their situation, their ceremony is similar to the way my people used to do it. So I felt very identified with that. I made a bunch of friends out there, so I started learning some of the Lakota songs. And one year, my brother really needed a prayer, and I decided to dance the sun dance. I was really moved by that prayer, so I just started dancing ever since. And I used the sweat lodge for my own peace of mind. It's my cleansing ceremony, but a lot of people that have been doing it with me, they request it a lot of times. So anytime somebody requests one, we do a ceremony, and people sometimes are asking a lot, so we usually have like one a month. And it's basically, we do a sweat lodge, 4 songs each round, 4 rounds. We do it with much respect to the people that have taught us this way. We try in no way to do this in any other way. With much honor and respect to the people that have showed us these ways, and I go to the tree every year to put myself in there, to ask permission, so I can keep doing this for the community.
There's a lot of symbolism to it, like the amount of, like the number of rocks that are brought in. Can you like talk about like the different symbolism that's used and what it means?
Well, it'd be really difficult for me just to tell you the way. There are so many different ways, so many different families, so many different Teoshpayes, so many different leaders, so many different the purposes of the life. If it's a healing lodge, there are so many different ways. Different cultures do different ways. Some lodges do it from the fire on the side, some do all rocks at first, some do. There are so many different formulas. But there are sweat lodges around. The best way is just to go to different lodges or to a lodge that you feel called to and see what way the family does it. And there are specific numbers that are important all the time to all these cultures. The number 4, the number 7 are important numbers. So they get played a lot during the ceremonies. But I wouldn't be able to tell you right now.
And like part of it, kind of what I was thinking of when I was in there, because sometimes it's, you pour the water on the stones, and then you have this steam hitting your face, and it can be very uncomfortable. And I was wondering, is that kind of like by design? Because it's kind of like if you're sitting in Zen meditation, you're sitting on your ankles. After a while, your like knees might start to hurt, your back kind of hurts, but you can't move. You're just sitting there, and you take it, and if you no matter what happens, you're just accepting that. And then the teacher might come with this stick. It's made out like hickory, kind of like a couple feet long, and he might whack you on the shoulder really hard with it, and it hurts, but you can't do anything. Mm-hmm. You just sit there like it didn't happen, and so you develop this. You become less reactionary. It's not like, oh, you just stepped on my foot. Oh, now I'm mad. It's like you stepped on my foot. Oh, that's no big. Is that part of it? That being uncomfortable and just.
Well, it's as I say, there's so many different people that do it so many different ways. I know some people that do it really hot. I know some people that do it not as hot. So all depends on where your tradition, your family comes from. But in the way I see things, heat. I feel like the sweating part of the sweat lodge is a very good therapy. Heat therapy for relaxing your muscles, for releasing toxins through your sweat. If you gain if you have a good breathing technique, you can hang out. If you take a towel, put it over your head, then you can breathe better. You can lower your head a little if you really need a little coolness. But I'm not there to make everybody suffer from too much heat and burn everybody. No, I'm trying to make a good experience, but people heat tolerance are so different. Some people take the heat well, some people do not, and maybe. The sweat lodge is meant to be, a little hot. It gets more intense if the more rocks are in, the harder if they've been cooking for a while. At the same time, you can see it that way, the way you mention it, and that's not a bad way of seeing it. They were like, maybe I'm here to get used to this. It's not going to kill me. I'm here to suffer a little bit with this heat, this intensity. I want it in, and eventually I get used to it, and it will help me at the end. That's a way of seeing it, and I don't see why. I see it as a good.
Yeah, I was watching this biblical series that Jordan Peterson did. Have you heard of Jordan Peterson? He's a clinical psychologist. He was a college professor, and I think Matt started listening to some of his stuff too. But he's just really brilliant. But he did this biblical series, and it's I think at least 10 2.5 hour lectures on it. But he's not like coming at you like a preacher. You need to like believe this to like get into heaven. Or it's not like that at all. It's like this is the psychological value that you can actually apply to your life. So like he talks about the stories or like the metaphors are like more true than truth or something like that. So you don't have to believe that any of these things actually happened. It's what's the psychology of the story, and he'll break it down. Like one little part takes 2.5 hours to just like start. It's a fascinating series. But he was talking about sacrifice and like what that can mean, and like what like God wants, like why sacrifice, and what does that even mean? And that was kind of what popped into my mind when we were talking about immigration. And so you will have someone come here from Mexico or something like that, and they'll work a job that they don't want to be at, so their kids can go to college and do whatever they want. So they make that sacrifice, and that so it seemed like I was just kind of like wondering. I didn't have it real well thought out or anything, but you're in this, like last night you had one, and it's like I knew I was going to go to it, but there's part of me that's like, oh, I could just sit on my couch and watch TV. I've had a long week. I'm working a lot, and I never thought I actually wouldn't go. But you have that thing in your mind that's like, I don't have to go to this thing and get all super hot and uncomfortable. but it's almost like this sacrifice of my time. I wanted to do it. It's like an honor to be there. So it's, I hope you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I am spending my time to go do something that's not comfortable. But afterwards, it's like, it's so great afterwards.
Afterwards, yeah.
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 It's like, does it have something to do with a sacrifice in your mind, or is it?
Yeah, no, it does. Like, when I go to Sundance, it's a complete sacrifice. You know, trying not to drink water through the day, you're trying not to eat any food. It's a complete sacrifice for your prayer. And this sweat lodge, it could be seen as that, and yeah, it's seen as a little sacrifice. And afterwards, you feel so much. You can sleep so well. You get the community for a potluck dinner afterwards. Everybody talks, and it's a good thing at the end, you know. But you were just talking. But yeah, the sacrifice part. Yeah, it is a little sacrifice. And it could be an uncomfortable thing at the beginning if you're not used to sitting in a small enclosed location with a bunch of people in sweatshirts with a bunch of rocks and in a different language, and yeah, it is uncomfortable. It's but breaking through that, I think, is a big thing for us as humans.
Yeah, I was also thinking of like, well, what, like, you know, thinking so much about consciousness, and then when I re-listen to like these shows and looking at these things from these different like states of consciousness, and then so like whether you're like in like the sweat lodge, it's like, is it an altered state of consciousness in a way?
Yeah.
Not that it's like you're like high on a drug or something, but it's like kind of a different, you're stepping into like this different world.
Yeah, no, I just remember the other point you made, I had forgotten, is the sacrifice that, and it takes us back to your earlier point where the immigrant that comes here and makes a huge sacrifice to go, when they go walk through the border, they probably gonna get abused by these criminals that are bringing people through the border. They go through days through the desert or the river, however, you know, it goes for people different ways. Hidden in a truck, jumping walls, however it happens. Huge sacrifice in order to put their kids through college. And yeah, there is more opportunities sometimes in here, because remember, yeah, we're in the middle of Babylon. There is a lot of stuff here. I remember that my first year when I walked in North Manchester, Indiana. I mean, the evenings, nobody was outside, and I'm like, where is the people? There's 5,000 people in this town, about 1,200 students. In springtime, everybody will do spring cleaning and will put outside their house whatever they didn't want. Tables, dressers. Oh my God, I couldn't believe that people were throwing away a good desk and a table, and I like, what's going on here? You know, I never seen such thing. There is there are things. It's a huge country, huge society. So there are multiplied opportunities for people to advance and to do things. I was an entrepreneur in El Salvador before I came here. But in here the system is set up for that way too, so it was easy to adapt that way. And the other point you made about the lodge, yeah, I feel like those type of ceremonies for me, like the Sundance and the Sweat Lodge, it's almost like an altered state of mind without having to use any other helpers, like a psychoactive drug or something like that. Yeah, it's more like people who do yoga or meditation or can feel or search from their quest. A similar thing we do with this type of prayers. Yep.
One thing I noticed, and I don't know if it was like it was kind of dark before you close the flap, which makes it completely dark. There are like these like scars on your chest, and then I noticed Travis had the same thing. Can you talk about what that is?
Yeah, it's there's part of these sacrifices that we're talking about at the Sundance. Part of the Lakota way of being is to do a sacrifice. So you actually make pegs out of bone or out of strong wood, and the Sundance leader, when it's your time, will actually put their pegs through your chest, perforate your skin, and you're tied to a rope to the tree, and that's how you do flesh offering. You put yourself away out of the tree until you get this scar. They cut your skin, and that's your offering to the tree. So they're called flesh offerings. And yeah, it's pretty out there for anybody that doesn't believe in this way of prayer. It's a difficult thing to see if you're, ethnocentric, if you don't have an open mind. But the body is the only thing that we own. It's the only thing that I came to this world with. The material things, I can give all the material things I have, but my body is the only thing that I really own that's gonna go with me when my spirit dies. So that's my true offering to life, to the tree of life. It's my flesh. So it's they're called flesh offerings, and the sun dancers we do a Sundance once a year in South Dakota.
Well, I thought they might be like Burns or a brand or something like that. I wasn't expecting that. It seemed like I was just listening to something else about that exact same thing. I don't know if it was a dream I had or what, but it seemed like just very, very recently I heard that exact same thing, but I did not know that's what your thing was. I wish I could remember it. Maybe I'll remember it later. So I want to know what I was watching. Maybe it was one of those Jordan Peterson things. I think that might have been what it was, but now I'm really curious because that you just connected something that I wasn't expecting. I think the sacrifice thing is a good way to start wrapping up the show because it challenge people's idea. What does sacrifice mean, and what can we do? You can sacrifice your time a little bit, maybe your money, and then there's these more extreme ways, of course. So is there you have some closing thoughts, and what are your businesses again? How can people get a hold of you, and whatever closing thoughts you have?
Yeah, no, for the sacrifice, it's this could be seen like a extreme way of sacrifice, which it is. But remember that there's so many different cultures, and some people sacrifice their money. That's their idol. That's what they pray to, their money, and it's I can sacrifice $1,000 for that cause, or for what I believe, or for church. Some people sacrifice their time, as you said, and it's I'm gonna dedicate some time. It's just that's just the way I do my thing. Doesn't mean that's the right way. Doesn't mean that's the way I want people to do it. That's just the way I have come to do my own spirituality, my own quest. It's my own search. It's how I have overcome a lot of issues that have come because of all these problems from society, that we live in. And that's how I've been able to help a lot of people that have had a lot of issues. So it's been a good thing, I believe. We have a marketing business. I do a lot of marketing for the school, for White Pine. We also have conscious cleaning. We help a lot of people with decluttering or cleaning houses or staging houses. If you need to sell your house, we can help you get it ready. And if you're moving in, we can help you. We have helped people with connections with contractors that can do carpentry and landscaping, and we're a resource for people. We only have about 30 clients. They use us for a bunch of their work, from anything from pet sitting to childcare to cooking to shopping. We have a team of 8 people helping, and we're trying to create a business that has the mentality, complete consciousness. When we're doing the work, we want to be conscious of what we are eating, how are we treating ourselves at work, how our clients are treating us, how we're treating our clients. And that way we can do really good work, but at the same time be fair to everybody. That's why, yeah.
How do people get a hold of you?
Through my email, Amos Rodriguez, AMOS Rodriguez, RODRIGUEZ @gmail.com. For our businesses, we are just word of mouth, and we only have so many people, so we don't take like a bunch of clients. But we if you have questions, specific questions about the lodge or this and that, you can email me there. But if you do need help with the organizing or cleaning, you can. And if we have a space in the schedule, we can. You can call 317-500-6612, and we can get you in the schedule and with some organizing or cleaning on. If we can do it, we can have somebody help you.
Well, thank you very much for being on. That went some different directions that I was definitely not expecting. I've been looking forward to you coming on, and I know other people have too. Everyone that I've told about it has been looking forward to your episode, and you have an open invitation to come on whenever you want. Thanks for listening to Fitness and Consciousness. If you want to get a hold of me about training, strength and conditioning training, or about the show, you can do so at fitnessandconsciousness@gmail.com.
My pleasure.